Hello, 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 and welcome to the $1 Million Electrician Podcast, where we help home service pros like you supercharge your business and spark up those sales.
I'm Joseph Lucani, and together with my co-host, Clay Newmeyer, we're here to share the secrets that have helped electricians sell over $1 million from a single service van.
Now, it's time for sales. It's time for scale. It's time to become $1 million electrician. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the $1 Million Electrician. Man, I am pumped. Joe, how are you doing today, my brother?
Man, I am feeling it today, but I gotta admit, it's one of those things where we started the podcast and the first thing I expected to hear was hello, hello, hello. And I miss that every now and then, right?
Yeah. Well, with recorded intro too, that helps a bit. Today we got a super special show, actually. This one's a lot of fun. And it comes right after a couple of big interviews. We had David Naples sharing some of his experiences, his org, and his influence with you guys. And then Guillermo Castillo last week. Those were both just dynamite episodes. If you haven't listened to those, please go back. If you want some good insights, though, today on improving your sales, we've got just what the doctor ordered. Why we don't recommending solutions to your clients and how this will actually help you make more sales today if you get this right. I know some people probably read this or are hearing this right now, and they're thinking, what the hell are you guys talking about? Joe, help me out. Help us understand, what is this subject? Why is it important? Why wouldn't we make a recommendation? We're the experts.
The best way that I think I can communicate this is to put it into context. So can you go through a role play of a scenario with me? I think that'd be the best way to describe it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. You've called me to your home because you want a single ceiling fan installed. Let's make this even more fun. You've got it where you literally have a fan in the ceiling. Yeah. You have the box right underneath it. It's got the Hampton Bay. It's the old great Home Depot brand. And you even went out of your way to get me a new box on top of it. How thoughtful for you. If we're even going to go further, you bought the switch. So we already know, like, this seems like a great type of customer, right?
Yeah.
But all of us are electricians. We go to the call and we recognize that the customer, you, have a Federal Pacific panel. What is the instinct of every electrician in that situation?
Well, to let me know of the unsafe condition in the electrical panel.
Correct. But how we articulate it and when we bring it up is going to be the difference between this call going positive or negative.
Okay.
So you're this customer still. You call me for this fan. Now, I go through my observations. Imagine the first thing that I described to you is us addressing the panel.
Right.
How does that feel from the customer perspective?
Well, my sales walls are up. I mean, they already were when I called you. I didn't want to be sold. I likely just wanted more information. I wanted to know what this call was going to cost. That's why I bought the fan and the box in the first place, was cost control. And you know what? Can I really be blamed for having that mentality about it, at least as a starting framework for controlling the budget in this installation?
Exactly. So we have that in place. Now, what would happen if I made it a non-negotiable and that every single option has now that panel included? How much control do you feel over this outcome?
Yeah, not much, man. That would be a problem for us.
Correct. But now we're in a rock and a hard place because we can't avoid doing this Federal Pacific. We have to at least address it in some capacity. We all agree it's unsafe. But how we bring it up and when is now going to change. So now here's the second way that I would recommend that we do it.
Okay.
Now, we started off where I created the observations, and I'm slowly giving you this information of, well, here's what you called me for. This is specifically what you wanted. And here's how what I found is directly connected to what you called me for. And I'm going to offer you solutions, but they're focused on addressing and supporting the main thing you called for. So I'm going to tell you the first thing in that option, the first thing you're going to hear out of my mouth is how we're upgrading and addressing the fan. And then as we've gone down that list, then I'm saying because we've done this and this and this, we're also now going to address the electrical infrastructure. So when you're using this fan, we know that it's going to safely operate and you're not going to have to worry about this being a concern in the future. Now, how does the justification of bringing it up feel?
Well, better. I have a way out for one. I could always just choose a lower option.
Exactly.
But I'm still being educated on the other elements of my system, what may or may not be safe.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask a question?
Go for it.
How do you differentiate and stay away from what we're saying here?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference to you then between a proposed solution, let's say, and
Mm-hmm.
recommending that solution?
The timing. And timing is going to be everything. And here's why. When people often, as electricians, we as a trade, we've often been told and have learned that we need to feel smart. And what that means is we try to showcase our electrical knowledge to the customer in advance. We often make suggestions. So let's say now I'm the same call, right? I've made it down to your panel to do the inspection because I'm not going to touch that fan without looking at the panel. But now I'm talking at the panel saying, oh, Clay, well, don't you know this has been outlawed since the 70s and 80s. Like these have been completely recalled. What are your thoughts on actually us addressing this for you while we're here today?
Mm,
Now the problem is we've all agreed that something should be done to it. But because I've made a suggestion that you should do it, now I'm completely bottlenecked. Because either you say, yes, I would like to hear about it, and that's great. But the far more likely answer is no, I don't want to address it at this time. I just want you to focus on the fan. And now, as electricians, we're now stuck into either honoring the customer's wishes and leaving them with an unsafe system, or pushing past and saying, I know you didn't ask for this. I know you didn't want for this, but I'm still going to tell it to you anyway because I think I know better than you do.
important
Where,
points.
where is that going to end us?
Not good.
Exactly. So here's how we're going to tie it all together. Now, what is the difference? I mentioned the difference was timing. If we can always ensure that we save our education until the call is ready to be presented, you are actually not only increasing the timing, but you're actually increasing the ability for the customer to retain and absorb the information. Is it okay if I dive into that a little bit? I don't want to monologue on this one.
No, it's good, man. I also see this from another angle now.
Mhm.
You're actually maintaining sales control by doing that and withholding that for the right time.
Correct. Now, it can even go even further. Like, let's say, sake of argument, you have a spouse, right?
Yep.
And I meet with one individual, I meet with you, and I'm going to go into this, and you've made it clear that, your partner is involved, and, obviously you want to make sure that they can be involved in whatever they're going to hear. But I see a Federal Pacific, and now I start making suggestions on all the things that you should probably do. Now, you may be having an electrical background or a mechanical background, or you don't believe that this is as big a concern. So I tell you, and you say no. But now half the people who are living in this home are now unaware of a major safety concern. And if there is a concern, who's that other person going to blame? Are they going to blame you? This is on Clay. Yeah, he just didn't educate me. You told him, he just didn't communicate. They're not going to say that, right? So it's also protecting the other person from an ethical standpoint. Do we not believe they at least have the right to have equal access to this information?
Yeah.
So
we all do.
So if we're in a situation to now, we're going to properly educate, we're going to position it to everything we're educating on is directly tied to what you originally called me for. We're explaining how it's relevant to what you've called me for. And then we're positioning it to, once I've given you this situation, I can immediately provide you a solution. Now, question for you. Why would it be so important that if I'm giving you the description of what's wrong, I have to immediately give you the solution?
You don't what's the word I'm looking for? There'd be a recency bias essentially. And if you separate those two, I'm going to be stuck on trying to imagine what those solutions or the costs may be the moment that I learn about them, essentially.
Yep. I'm going to speak directly to every electrician listening to this because I guarantee I'm going to say a few words and everyone's going to start to shiver, right? So if you've been on the call and you've made the suggestion to the customer and you're like, we found knob and tube in the walls, we found aluminum wiring, we found the fuse, but whatever the thing was that we're like, yeah. And then you've done it before you've priced it. And now the customer says, wow, that's serious. We should get that addressed. What's the cost of that? What do we got to do? And you're
How
stuck
much?
saying, I don't know. Now, if you don't know a price, and what does that imply? Do you mean that you do this frequently? If you did it frequently, wouldn't you at least have a range?
Right. You're losing authority in that position.
You're losing authority and credibility because it's either you don't know the information and that affects your competence, or you're withholding that information intentionally, and that conflicts with ethics. So, regardless, just by you saying anything, you are putting yourself in a losing situation. And the margin of success is so narrow, the customer has to do everything literally perfect to you avoid falling into a pit.
Important stuff. You guys are hearing it right from the horse's mouth here. Joe, the sales bot Lucani, letting you have it. There's a couple of wins, and you reminded me of one. I wanted to share the wins of the week, but I want you guys to stick around because we've got a tool to help you with this, actually, not making these recommendations, but rather helping your clients buy. And this is a very important tool. So we want to get that to you. But you mentioned really about partners in the one example you mentioned there. And one of our Canadian clients, their teammates, Dan, just had a big win today, actually. This just came in with a 15K plus. There was some change on the end of that one, platinum.
He was proud of the change.
Joe, it sounded like a situation where Dan would have prior just emailed it over. He faced partner objection on this opportunity call. The husband was not intent on buying, but he positioned this for a 2-call and a close. I'm going to call it instead of a 2-call close. And that really is exemplifying this sticking with it, staying consistent on the process. And much of what we're talking about today, because you know what? I can vouch for this as a homeowner. I would certainly not have someone to my house for a second call if they were pushing any recommendations of any sort on me at all. Do you have anything to say to that one, Joe?
I mean, it's all going to be based off of the person. You know, like first off with Dan, like I am immensely proud of him. He's an amazing student to start with. But one of the things that I felt was really impactful in this particular sale was that this particular person wasn't actually trying to buy. Like that was the really, like you could tell it was an arm's length. Like I'm going to get the information. I'm going to go over this with my wife. Like this is what's happening. But by being able to ethically position himself in a way to now it's like, no, you're right. My wife should hear this information. No, she should hear it from you. That makes sense. Going from just an email and then following up and not coming up with anything to doing a $15,000 platinum is insane. I'm very, very proud of him for that.
Really impressed. And that is a single platinum came in today. He may still reach what Fernando reported, I think last week. Fernando hit a double platinum week, which very seldom does this happen. Few people have this award. Fernando certainly earned that with an 11.5K and an 11K platinum sale back to back that week. Focused heavily on solutions you were mentioning. Do you want to shed some light on Fernando's double platinum week here?
Yeah. So the reason why he was able to do that so well, and other than once again being a great student and really applying himself, is one of the benefits of our program is we do something called an options class. It's actually a design specialist class that we host multiple times a week. And the benefit of them is that you can come in and literally say like, I don't know how to design this call. It could be anything. And you would literally have the option of building 6 options with me. So we physically engineered 2 jobs together, articulated exactly how they're going to sound, and built the full spread of 6 options apiece. But because we had not only built them together, articulated them, and designed them, he had been so familiar with them that when he actually presented it, it was his 3rd or 4th time actually practicing doing it. So he was so on point, and he said that it really came out so much smoother. And he gives a lot of the credit to being able to articulate it in class and build them together.
Super pumped for Fernando. And, you know, I get that you help in a big way. And we're always trying to help teach people to fish. And I just wanted to give extra props to Fernando because it's never about us or what we talk about in class. It means nothing if that person doesn't take a step out and go and run the play and hold true to that process and the trajectory that we planned for. So congratulations, Fernando, on a double platinum week. You earned it, brother. And just a quick shout out to 4 members who hit their first 100K plus months in service work last month. We had Nick, Mike, Alex, and Adam. Both each, rather not both, but each doing varying amounts and reaching that 6-figure mark in a month. And that's so important because I believe, for one, Joe, if you can do that in a month, then you are definitely a $1 million electrician. It's just working on the consistency efforts from there and making it happen all year round. And like many of our electricians that tend to perfect this sales process or get very close in their first year or two, It really comes down to being this equation of just, did we get enough leads to run the play enough to really make it happen? And so we've seen this several times, and those that happen to have adequate leads at all times, like Dan Totten, we've seen him blow up, and I can't wait to do a second year interview with him coming
Oh
up
yeah,
in
that's gonna be
January.
fire.
First year, right? Starting out with us to that first full year, hitting 1.1 million, now on track to 2.5 to 3 million in his second year.
They're 2.8 or something like that. It's insane.
Incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. So we've got some great interviews. There's actually another one. I can't wait. We're doing a deep dive with Joe here. Joe's going to be tickled pink. One of the next episodes that are coming, we're going to release an interview for you guys on generators. And we've got another generator specialist joining us that's absolutely crushing it in Louisiana. And I can't wait to introduce on the show. And Joe, you guys are going to be nerding out. I'm going to be the one looking for places to talk, I'm sure. But I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, I'm pumped, man. It's one of those things. It goes without saying, I'm a generator junkie. What can I say?
Yeah. Anything to provide you guys value each week. We talked about this yesterday in a team meeting. We have a simple question we ask ourselves before we decide to record a podcast for you guys. And that is, does this help electricians elevate their service game today? Does it help them provide a better level of service for their customers? And if it does, then we want to bring it to you. That said, let's finish this episode up. I promised a tool. Joe, I want to ask you, you mentioned the 4 whats. Yeah. This is something we have given away before, guys. I'm going to give you the code word here. All you've got to do is reach out to Clay.Newmeyer on Instagram, Clay Newmeyer or Joseph Lucani on Facebook, or join us in our Facebook group, the $1 Million Electrician group. Any of those places will do. Even if you're following or watching on YouTube, you can comment there, 4 whats. And myself personally, or someone on our team is going to send you this value piece over. But just in light, Joe, would you go over this one more time, how important this is for not recommending any solutions, but just providing a set of solutions for someone to be able to choose at the appropriate level for them and their budget today?
Yeah. So just to make sure you're asking how the observation section applies to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure of that. So the main benefit of the observations is that I've learned it's better to be able to speak to the problem. And if you've adequately spoken to the problem, the solution will naturally want to sell itself. As a result, the customer has their intention. They've got their reasoning to want to purchase from you. So if you have the choice, learn to speak to that well. The reason why it's so important for this particular topic is because we all agree that we need to educate them on these hazards that they've run into. But if we don't do it the right way, our good, noble intention of trying to make them safer actually becomes communicated as, this person is trying to push something on me and I shouldn't trust them, rather than this person is trying to protect me and I should trust them.
Love that. Love that. And the 4 whats as described are available in this value piece. Just send us that code word 4 whats. We'll send it over to you. Joe, let me ask you one last question, just to pressure test your philosophy here and the way that you do sales. What if someone literally asks you for your recommendation? What would you do then?
Well, it would depend on when in the call it was, but I'm going to assume that it's usually that we're at the panel or we're at the fault location, right? The thing is, when a customer asks you, what do you think we should do? If you're in still the diagnosis step, that communicates their intent, but also communicates that they really don't have a solution in mind. So because of that, they're trying to probe for you. Any answer you give them there doesn't actually move the sale forward. So instead, what I'd want to do is I'd want to question and see what they currently know. So it'd be like, well, I'd love to make a suggestion, but as of right now, I'm still in the evaluation process. And I never want to give you information before it's really time. So I'm happy to help. Is it okay if we circle back to this once I've really evaluated the system as a whole? Awesome. And then even further, you want to put the spice, because I never want to risk seeming like I'm pushing something you don't need or absolutely want. Is it okay if I just ensure that it's really something you need before I make a suggestion?
I love that. I'm always a fan of addressing the elephant in the room. They don't want to feel sales pressure. Please, guys, do not miss this opportunity to sell more by pushing less. Make less recommendations, speak well to the pain points using our 4 whats exercise and your observation section. lay out a set of complete solutions from the finest you could offer to the most affordable solution you could possibly provide, and let them choose. It will be in your benefit. And ironically, by having less pressure, I think you'll see your sales rise up.
Agreed.
Thank you guys for joining us. Can't wait to see you again next week. Thank you, Joe.
Be blessed and have an amazing day. Take care.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the $1 Million Electrician Podcast.
We hope you're buzzing with new ideas that charged up to take your business to the next level.
So don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with fellow electricians. Together, we'll keep the current flowing.